I kjølvannet av podcastbølger så har mange mediehus kastet seg på muligheten for å lage innhold til smarthøyttalere. Selv så begynner jeg alltid morgenen min med å si god morgen til hun som gir meg best respons klokka 6:30 i heimen. Da begynner jeg dagen min med å si OK, Google, god morgen.
God morgen, Elin. Klokken 10:27. Akkurat nå det 6 grader og delvis skyet i Bergen. I dag skal det bli delvis skyet med temperaturer mellom 3 og 8. I dag klokken 17 har du den vanskelige samtalen, siden i morgen klokken 10 har du alltidvask. Ha en flott dag. Her siste nytt.
Iran går bort fra deler av atomavtalen. Det melder AFP. Nyheten kommer nøyaktig 1 år etter at USAs president...
Altså, jeg får værvarsel, trafikkstatus, jeg får nyheter fra de nettstedene som jeg vil at hun skal gi meg nyhetene fra, og Google gir meg også beta-versjonen til Aftenbladet sitt lydprodukt før lyset går på og Vinnie synger God morgen Norge og vekker resten av gjengen som ligger og søver. Og det nok mange av dere som har tilsvarende rutiner med sine assistenter. Men siden vi fikk Google på norsk, så har det jo vist seg at Google fremdeles best på engelsk. Der vet alle som har spurt Google om hva klokka og fått til svar at det en enhet som viser tid. So let's do as the Googles, do this in English. For today we have Brenda Salinas Baker from Google to help us out. She's working with news partnerships at Google with a special focus on audio. Before coming to Google, Brenda had a career in public broadcasting, reporting and producing stories for national shows and podcasts. Brenda is passionate about helping newsrooms to tell sound-rich stories that reach new and diverse audiences. Brenda is based in London, but today we are lucky to have her in Bergen. Give a big hand to her.
Hi, good morning. I was so inspired by Margarita's keynote presentation. I want to give her another hand. Also, do you realize that you're getting 2 back-to-back Latina speakers? What? Only in Norway? Very happy to be here this morning. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. So I was a radio producer. It hurts every time I say I was a radio producer because in my heart, that's what I get up in the morning to do, to make radio, to tell stories. And the way I came into Google was very unconventional. You know, I never thought that I would work at a big tech company. So I was at NPR, I was freelancing and producing a lot of really great stories, and one of my editors from NPR, his name is Steve Henn, said, hey, he called me and he said, hey, I'm starting this company, we're going to revolutionize radio, we're going to make personalized news magazines, I want you to come on board and make radio stories for this platform. And you know, I was a freelancer at the time, so I said, sure, that sounds like a great job. And a year and a half later, I had moved to London because my husband is a graduate student at the London School of Economics, so for personal reasons. And I was walking around London looking for a studio space, looking for a place to call a home, where I got a phone call that said, hey, we got acquired by Google. I was like, what? Excuse me? Because Google doesn't make content, right? I'm not a radio producer at Google, but what I do now is I work on news partnerships. So we are creating a product that we think is going to revolutionize radio in a really amazing way that I want to share with you. And my job is to make sure that radio producers like me and radio broadcasters and podcasters are represented in that conversation. So something that I didn't know before coming to Google, you know, when you're looking at Google from the outside in, it feels like Google is this like monolith and it's just this big cruise ship that's like pushing and there's a very clear sense of direction and everybody agrees. And what I was relieved to find at Google is that all the conversations that happen externally at Google, you know, when the media says, has Google thought about this, has Google thought about that, those conversations are happening internally too. So, and those conversations are robust and they can get really tense. So that's not to say don't criticize Google. Like, of course, you should be pushing back. You should be telling Google, not just in op-eds, but also the people inside Google who really care about journalism, and we're growing in our ranks. There are a lot of us want to give you opportunities to give us feedback on the product development process and tell us the products that we want you to develop. I don't think you should have to give money because what you do is already so valuable. The mission of Google is to organize the world's information and make it useful. Without journalists, without journalism, there is no organization, there is no information to organize, right? So you do have a seat at the table, and we want to make that more and more so. I guess what I want to say is, you'll have a lot of advocates at Google. Google cares about news. I'm an advocate for you at Google. Use me. Use your Google contacts that you know. We are on your side. And something that we're doing is we're creating this news product, and we want to share it with you, even though it's just in developer preview mode. So it's just in this experimental mode, so that you can give us feedback, so that you can really help us shape the future of this product and make sure that it works for everybody. So I want to start by taking you all the way back to 1996. This is the homepage of the Wall Street Journal. I promise I was alive in 1996. I was, drawing on MS Paint in my little compact 96. This is what the internet looked like. Do you remember this? It was ugly, right? And look at all the links. Who uses the internet? What do they do online? Do I have privacy? Are my kids safe? How do I make money? These are questions that we're all asking ourselves about voice right now, and they're really good questions. But there's precedent, right? The way we feel, I want you to remember that we are in 1996 when it comes to voice. This is a technology that's very exciting. And even the most creative among us can't really predict how it's going to shape out. So imagine trying to explain the 2019 internet to your 1996 self. Like, you just wouldn't have the words. Like, how would you explain Instagram? You'd be like, well, you have this tiny computer on your phone, on your pocket, that takes pictures, and you'd take pictures and you put it on a bulletin board to make all your friends jealous. What? That sounds crazy. But it's Instagram, right? So we don't know where the voice is going to lead, because it's so nascent, but we do know that it's becoming the new normal. I love this chart because it shows that these are some queries that people ask the Google Assistant, and you can see how they spike up. The more that people ask, play the next episode, call mom, navigate home, and it works, it's like, whoa, that was easy, and it worked. And then they do it tomorrow, and they do it the next day, and they do it the next day, and it becomes this habit. So for a really long time, we have been teaching humans how to be good at computers, right? Like, we all remember those dreadful computer science classes we had to take in elementary school. And now, finally, we're teaching computers how to be good at being more human. And I think that's really exciting. And the way I explain the digital assistant is that it's kind of like the genie in the bottle. So the assistant, the genie, is the magic. It's everywhere. And the bottle is all the devices that it's in, watches and headphones and phones and, the home hub. And for right now, discovery is very broken on these devices. If you think about it as a genie, you have to know the magic spell. And that's really hard. The user education piece is hard. Do you guys have children that you've seen interact with voice assistants? Isn't it amazing? They don't even know what they want to say. They just say it. They say, okay, Google or Alexa or whatever, and they just say, they don't even know what they want to say. They're just so excited to have this interaction. And a lot of people, a lot of kids do this all the time. They want these assistants in their bedrooms. They're so excited. And as adults, I think we're kind of the opposite. We almost want to make sure that it works before we ask it a question. It's like we feel a little bit of shame. And I would really challenge all of us, to kind of have an experimental mindset and really try to be childlike with these devices, because the more that we use them, the smarter they get. Sometimes people tell me oh, I asked Google that, and it never knows the answer. Well, don't give up. Keep trying. And have you tried recently? Because these devices are based on machine learning, right? So they get smarter the more that we use them. So people ask the Google Assistant all sorts of questions, from how do you fix a dripping tap to questions about the world around them. So it makes sense that news would be an integral part of that picture. Right now, there are a number of ways to get news stories on the Assistant, and I'm going to go through those really quickly because that is the reality in Norway, and it's going to be the reality for the next year or two. And then I want to move on to what we're working to build. And I know that the question is going to be, when is this coming to Norway? We don't know. We don't know yet. So we're in developer preview in the US. I've seen products be in developer preview, which is this experimental phase where a small subset of users get this product, and then we can test and see how it's performing. I've seen products be in developer preview for 2 months, and I've seen them be in developer preview for 2 years. So it just kind of depends on how good the product is. We're not going to launch the product unless it's really good. And then usually with Google products like the Assistant, as you saw, they launch first in the US, and then they launch in English markets, and then they launch to European markets. So it'll be soon. If you think about 1996 to now, it'll feel soon. But if you're excited about this technology the way that I am, you might feel impatient. I am with you. But let's try to be excited and look at what's coming next. So today, as I said, the Assistant delivers a great experience for the fans you already have. If people know how to ask for your channel or your podcast, they have to know the magic spell. You can ask for a podcast by name. That integrates with Google Podcasts. You can build an action on Google. And we are aggressively building out live stream integrations for broadcasters. But discovery is a problem. You can also explicitly participate in news on the Assistant. And news on the Assistant is basically what happens, as you saw when you ask Google for the news. But you can also integrate it into your routine. So when you say good morning or good evening, it'll do a series of actions, and news can be a part of that action. So you can make your content expressly available on Google Home devices, including smart displays and the Home Mini, and the Assistant, the phone. If you have audio feeds, you can submit those RSS feeds to be played when a user asks a general news query or one specific to your publication. And so the traffic goes to your RSS feed, like with Google Podcasts. We don't host anything. We just catch the RSS feed and distribute it to people. If you don't have audio feeds, you can use something called speakable markup to note your text articles, to note excerpts on your text articles, and the Assistant should read out loud in response to topic-based queries. So it's really interesting. I try this all the time. So the Assistant, when you ask a question, it has to determine, is this a news story or is this not a news story? And that's a really hard thing to do. Like, even as a person, there's some things that are in between. So, for example, like 3 weeks ago, when I asked the Assistant, when is Meghan Markle having her baby, it was seen not as a news query and would read me a little bit on Wikipedia. But the day that the baby was born, it was a news story, so it answered a snippet, a speakable markup, so the robot reading it, but it was from The Telegraph, which is a news publication. Isn't that interesting? So yeah, we're figuring this stuff out, and in the future, and I will show you this later, in the future, we hope to give people audio, not the speakable markup. But the speakable markup is what we have right now, and it's a really good opportunity, I think, if you're not a broadcaster and if you're not experimenting in audio, to kind of get your feet wet and just see how this works. It's just a markup that you put on your web page and you basically highlight. It's pretty low touch. So news on the Assistant is a really good start. We're seeing more and more people use the Assistant to get their news every day. It works in Norway. There are a lot of feeds. Something that I would like to work with you on is getting more feeds, more content. So, people don't just want the hard news on the Assistant. They want entertainment and sports and things that are really relevant to them. So if you have content that you want to include in the Assistant, please follow up with me and we'll get you onboarded. It's a pretty quick process. The developer site, basically just, I hate saying just Google it, but basically Google News on Assistant Developer, and it'll take you to this site about all the different ways that you, as a producer, as a broadcaster, as a newspaper, can get involved with news on the Assistant. But there's still a lot more that we want to do. So right now, the News on the Assistant is a briefing product. So you get the 5 top stories from one outlet, the 5 top stories from another. And, once you get 3 of those, it can feel pretty repetitive because, for example, in the US, if I get the 5 stories from NPR and the 5 stories from MSNBC and the 5 stories from Fox, those stories are going to be some of the same stories, right? And as technologists, as Google, there's nothing that we can really do if the stories are bundled together to make sure that you don't get the same story from a different outlet. And that is something that we want to work on. So we are assembling the building blocks of a great audio experience. And what that relies on, apart from that, we're moving away from that briefing product into something that relies on single topic stories. So instead of having the whole front page of the newspaper, we're looking for individual articles. And that actually allows a personalized algorithm to prioritize articles based on what's important to each user. And the single topic story model allows us to power 3 different experiences, 3 different news experiences that are really exciting. So the first is a personalized audio news feed that's triggered when a user asks the Google Assistant for the news. So it's basically like a personalized radio magazine for every single person on the planet. It's very exciting. So it starts with short single topic stories and then leads into longer form content like interviews and podcasts. And the longer you stay with the experience, the longer the content gets. And we're designing stories that will be interspersed with calls to action from publishers based on what you as a news publisher want from a listener. So single topic stories. The second experience is query responses. So that example of when I asked, when was the baby born, getting a news answer that's audio, that isn't the text-to-speech speakable voice. The third example is the third experience that's triggered by single topic news stories is a publisher channel. So we are experimenting with publisher channels that will be controlled by you, the publisher. It's kind of like a Google News edition if you participate in Google News editions on the Google News app, but it's an audio form. And publishers in that space, which is basically like an action, so an action on Google is like an app on the voice assistant. And it'll be very low touch, and publishers will be able to say, for example, every user that goes to our channel that asks for us by name will hear these 5 stories, and then we'll apply the personalized algorithm, or not. Maybe everyone is going to get the same experience. It'll be up to you. And that allows every publisher to have an action on Google that's easily discoverable without having to invest a bunch of developer resources in making their own. I do think that for the big broadcasters, making your own action makes a lot of sense because you'll have more power to kind of control the user journeys and maybe have interactive experiences. If you think of this kind of like a Squarespace for audio, a lot of people will just want the simple RSS feed, but the more prestige, the more niche people will want an action. And we support that too. We just want to make it so that everybody can participate, whether they have 50 engineers or none at all. If you've ever worked with Google before, you'll notice these are our product principles. We're building an open ecosystem. It's really important to us. Google is a child of the open web. And right now, if you follow the podcast news, there are a lot of podcast companies that are kind of building these walled gardens. That is not a conversation that we have at Google. We want to be a child of the open web. And so you'll never get an email from me or anybody else at Google saying we want exclusive content. That's absolutely never going to happen. We want to drive discovery while informing and delighting our users, and we're exploring sustainable business models that fit publishers' different needs. So, in the UK, I manage different accounts. I manage The Guardian and the BBC, and I also manage Sky and the Evening Standard, and every single publisher has a very different business model. And what we build needs to reflect that. It needs to have different signals and different tools so that everybody can participate in this space and make a living, because without sustainability in the business model, there is no long-term product. We're envisioning that this product will be like Google News, but for audio, and the product will know what stories you've already read or heard about and where you are in your day when you're in need of an update rather than an explainer. we are building a product that's conversational and sounds really beautiful, and we want to help users understand when to interrupt the experience and ask us to pivot, and how to find the publishers they prefer. That's the user education piece that I was talking about, and that's a little bit tricky, but I think the more that we use these products and the more that we try, the better it'll be. So we, right now we're in developer preview in the US, which means a very small subset of users get this experience. And some of the data that we've gotten back, some of the feedback that we've gotten back, very interesting. People, it's generally positive, not fabulous, I'm not gonna lie, but good. And some people wrote us to say, oh, I just wish that I could skip stories. And you can skip stories in the experience already, but people don't know that. So it's like, if we don't tell people, they won't know, but when is the right time to tell people? And I think about Netflix a lot. 2 of our co-founders from the company came from Netflix. Like, did anyone ever show me how to use Netflix? I don't think so. I think it just worked. I think I just knew. So what is the audio version of that? How can we design that user experience? Let me go back one slide. So we, when you're in Google News, either the app or the web page, you know where each story is coming from. There's never any doubt who said, what article is coming from where. And we want to build the audio version of that. So what's the audio version of a headline, of a masthead? What does that look like? Is it, sonic branding, sonic IDs? We don't know. Right now, we really want each news segment to have a publisher-branded introduction, because we want publishers to be able to introduce themselves, to write their own masthead, using their own voice, their brand, and identity at the beginning of each story. And in addition, something that we're experimenting with is outros and off-ramps, which could evolve in many different directions to suit publishers' goals and business models. So basically, audio links, ways for publishers to tell listeners where they want them to go next, or what they want to play after the story. And you can think of this as a promotion, a call to action, or user education. And the hope, as we're designing this product that we hope will launch soon, is that it will flow into everything else you may already be doing that works on smart speakers and other places that the Assistant serves. Your podcasts already work on the Google Assistant. Your live streams work on the Google Assistant. And if you want to go big on some interactive audio experience, you can do that as an action on Google right now. And the Assistant isn't just voice, of course. You can also help direct a user to send text stories to their phone, or to even make a donation or subscribe to your paper, or buy a ticket to your live show. You will pick what works for you. We are working on a solution for a global set of audio publishers. We've had a working group with audio publishers to get feedback as we develop this product. And that will enable us to support publishers to shape and transform the audio ecosystem into a healthy place for all participants, and to deliver solutions to incentivize publishers to create great content for the listener experience. So, as a radio producer, it really does hurt my heart every day to not wake up and make audio. That's what I do. But I really believe in what Google is doing, and that's why I'm at Google as we develop this product. And I personally can't wait for this product to be launched and robust enough so that I can say, okay, I am ready to go outside of Google and make content for this experience. That is really my dream. It'll feel like a graduation. It'll be a very happy day, and I will make sure to let you all know about it. Thank you so much for your time. I'll be here all day. I'll make sure to stick around at the end of the day if you have any questions. My email is brendasalinas@google.com, so pretty simple. If I don't know the answer to your question, which I probably won't, I'll know who has the answer, and I'll make sure to route it to the right people. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brenda.